A chain of volcanic eruptions is pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. With no other options left, world leaders consider a desperate move, launching a nuclear warhead into the volcano's crater. But if the plan backfires, it could bring about the apocalypse even faster. Zhou Enchang is a Special Forces Sapper Squad captain, serving his very last day before a well-earned vacation. Tomorrow, he's finally off duty, but today he's been called in urgently to deactivate an old bomb found during the construction of a high-rise building. Careless on his final day, Zhou Enchang leaves the job to a rookie and cuts the briefing short, his mind already on his pregnant wife's upcoming appointment with the gynecologist. On his way home, he asks to find out the baby's gender, but the doctor forbids it, insisting the parents wait until the pregnancy reaches 32 weeks for this sacred secret. As he heads home, Zhou Enchang catches news from North Korea. The hostile neighbor has surprisingly agreed to nuclear disarmament and started cooperating with the US. They're set to hand over their last 6 nuclear warheads in the coming days, which would lift Western sanctions and pave the way for their recognition as a civilized nation. But just as the reporter delivers the update, a massive earthquake shakes the region, toppling North Korea's main government building, a symbol of its leader's power. Moments later, emergency alerts flood South Korean cell phones. Authorities urge citizens to stay indoors and await further instructions. News that deeply unsettles Zhou Enchang. Racing to get to his wife, the tremors intensify as the quake hits Seoul. The ground shifts violently beneath his feet, buildings crumble like dominoes. Risking his life, he navigates through streets engulfed in chaos but then is caught in a car accident. Pressing on, he witnesses homes continuing to collapse, spreading panic across the city. Eventually, the tremors subside, and the media reports a volcanic eruption at Mount Baekdu, located on the China-North Korea border. The Korean peninsula descends into uncontrollable chaos. China mobilizes troops to guard its borders against a flood of refugees, refusing entry and viewing them as a national threat. Meanwhile, the US announces an urgent evacuation of its personnel from the peninsula and declares its immediate intent to secure North Korea's nuclear warheads. Hours later, South Korea's presidential secretary, John Yoo-kyung, sets out to find a scientist capable of assessing the disaster's scale and preventing further catastrophe. Robert, the scientist, is skeptical. He's been ignored before, his warnings dismissed as paranoia, but the threat is undeniable. Begged by the president's aide to help save lives, Robert reluctantly agrees. He reveals that Mount Baekdu is an active volcano with 4 lava chambers. The first eruption devastated the uppermost, relatively safe chamber. The second and third eruptions will be smaller but are already triggered by a chain reaction and expected soon. The fourth and final eruption will be catastrophic, predicted to wipe out most of the peninsula, erasing 2 nations from the face of the earth. Robert devised a plan to prevent the final eruption by performing a sort of decompression on the lower lava chamber. To do this, they need to find a nearby mine and plant explosives inside it. The operation is extremely risky. The explosion has to be incredibly powerful, requiring the use of nuclear weapons. This news shocks the politicians, who fear the consequences of deploying nuclear arms and worry about potential miscalculations. The president calls Robert in for a private consultation to weigh the risks. The chance of success is just over 3%, but the president understands that only a risky and successful mission can stop the apocalypse and save 2 nations from total destruction. With no contact possible with North Korea, the president must make an extremely tough and risky decision. He orders Robert to find a way to improve those odds and commands a team to infiltrate the enemy country. One of the specialists recruited for the mission is Zhou Enchang. They promise to evacuate his pregnant wife and save Choi Ji-yun if he agrees to take the job. Fully aware of the danger, Zhou Enchang says goodbye to his wife and unborn child. Sensing he's holding back the full truth and that the mission is far more perilous than he admits, Choi Ji-yun begs him to promise to return before their baby is born. The next morning, Zhou Enchang, his soldiers, and military personnel gather at a secure base for mission coordination. Before the operation begins, everyone goes through a briefing to understand the plan. The team, split into 2 units, must infiltrate North Korea to locate the nuclear warheads and place them into a specially designed explosive device with a countdown timer that cannot be stopped or disarmed. No one knows the warheads' exact locations except a double agent holding a high government position in North Korea, Lee Jun-pyong. He was exposed and imprisoned, but carries a GPS tracker that allows the government to monitor his whereabouts. If the team can free Lee Jun-pyong, they'll get the coordinates, retrieve the explosives, and head to the right mine to trigger the blast, preventing millions of casualties. They have about 75 hours, the estimated time until the 4th and final volcanic eruption. At night, the 2 groups head to the airport. Zhou Enchang leads the sapper unit on one plane, while the special forces team tasked with clearing enemy territory flies on another. The sappers are not expected to engage in combat and must remain undetected, so they carry only rubber bullets. But as the planes take off, disaster strikes. The special forces plane engine sucks in volcanic ash, starts sparking, and catches fire. The aircraft begins losing altitude and soon crashes. Realizing they share the same fate, the Sapper team makes an emergency landing in a barren, lava-scorched wasteland. Once on the ground, Zhou and Chang realizes the Special Forces team perished, and now he's the squad leader responsible for saving millions of lives. Before moving forward, the team must reach the crash site to retrieve a black case containing a map with the mine's location. Facing death at every turn, Zhou and Chang completes the mission and leaves the crash site before an explosion. While Robert searches for ways to increase the operation's odds, and Choi Ji-yeon attempts to flee Seoul to save herself and the baby, the Special Forces move in on the prison where Lee Junpyong is held. Zhou and Chang understands his team is mentally, physically, and tactically unprepared for what's coming. His men are sappers who've never fired a weapon or even seen targets. They're certainly not ready for combat against a more experienced enemy. Still, they have no room for error, and absolutely no option to surrender. Upon arrival, they find the prison damaged by the volcanic eruption. The guards are dead, most prisoners have escaped, but the GPS tracker of the man they need remains stationary. Navigating through the catacombs beneath the North Korean prison, the group finally finds Lee Junpyong. The man openly mocks the cowardly team of rookies, trembling at every sudden movement. Lee Junpyong shows no fear of death and stares directly down the barrel of a rifle, knowing the safety is engaged. Demanding respect for his decisions, he asks for time, 10 minutes, to take a shower and compose himself. But those 10 minutes serve a double purpose. They give him a chance to study his new allies. Stealing Zhou and Chang's wallet, he learns that the man is about to become a father and discovers a map marking their required route. Memorizing the mine's location, Lee Junpyong swallows the map to ensure he remains useful and alive. He also removes the GPS tracker embedded in his head. When one soldier realizes the map is destroyed, he punches Lee Junpyong in the face, prompting a fierce promise of revenge. Soon after, the team makes a stop to contact command and coordinate their next move. Lee Junpyong seizes this opportunity to escape. Freeing himself from handcuffs, he beats the soldier who struck him and, leaving behind the GPS tracker, vanishes into the unknown. Knowing Lee Junpyong was aiming to reach a specific city, the team is forced to change course and pursue the double agent. Meanwhile, Lee Junpyong returns home to locate the map and gain access to the nuclear warheads. There, he confronts his wife, who is addicted to illicit drugs. She admits she betrayed him to local authorities as a traitor and gave their daughter to an orphanage. Despite the betrayal, he cannot bring himself to kill her. However, the Sapper team hears a gunshot from the chair where she sat and finds Lee Junpyong nearby. Hours later, the team reaches the building housing the nuclear warheads. Zhou and Chang tries to devise a plan, but as a novice in strategy and tactics, any idea he proposes seems doomed. Lee Junpyong, unwilling to die, suggests cutting power by disabling the generator and using night vision goggles to outmaneuver the enemy. Splitting into two groups, the squad storms the building, immediately facing hostile fire. Unfamiliar with how to disable the generator, the team resorts to throwing a grenade at it. The explosion only cuts power in one basement area, allowing a swift but partial clearing of the enemy. Soon, Lee Junpyong and Zhou and Chang find themselves surrounded by a dozen North Korean soldiers. Accepting their grim fate, Lee Junpyong shoots a rubber bullet at a sapper and feigns having killed him. As the enemies close in, he seizes a combat rifle and takes out all the soldiers. Still optimistic and constantly teasing the hapless team, Lee Junpyong leads them to a bunker containing 6 massive nuclear missiles. Securing the double agent to a metal support, the team begins extracting the warheads and installing them into a special explosive device. With 49 hours left until the apocalypse, a second earthquake shakes the ground. Lee Junpyong attempts to escape but is forced to return. He is a triple agent. In reality, he works for the Chinese mafia and must deliver the warheads along with the only person capable of activating them, Zhou and Chang. As a result, Lee Junpyong finds himself saving the Sapper team's lives and helping them evacuate the collapsing bunker. Meanwhile, Choi Ji-yeon ends up on the bridge. The second volcanic eruption causes the dam and bridge to collapse, unleashing a devastating tsunami. A pregnant woman is swept into the floodwaters but somehow manages to survive. The scientist notices the eruption happened far earlier than anyone predicted. New data reveals the catastrophic eruption will strike in less than 22 hours, not 2 days as they had thought. Worse still, the targeted mine won't produce the needed effect. The team needs to reroute to the 7th mine, not the 9th, but command has lost all contact with Cho and Chan and his squad. As Cho and Chan and the others break out, they're ambushed. Most of the inexperienced sappers are wounded or killed. The enemy uses heat-tracking weapons that give them a deadly advantage. Lee Junpyong quickly realizes these aren't North Korean troops, they lack the necessary equipment. Taking a huge gamble, Cho and Chan rigs a truck with a leaking gas tank to blow up an enemy vehicle and sow confusion. It looks like he's saved the team, but he's made a fatal mistake trusting Lee Junpyong. Using the chaos, Lee steals the nuclear warheads and betrays Cho and Chan, abandoning his men. Before fleeing, they realize the attackers were American soldiers, the very allies they thought they could count on. Meanwhile, US forces storm the secret base and order the operation to shut down immediately. Under intense pressure from Washington, the South Korean president is forced to pull back, even with millions of lives at stake. The US government forbids any use of nuclear weapons, even if it means saving humanity. The controlled demolition project is scrapped, replaced by a new directive: locate Lee Young-pyong, Cho In-chan, and recover the stolen warheads from their armored vehicle. Later, Lee Young-pyong calls the head of the Chinese mafia, setting up a meeting in the town where his daughter lives. Seizing a moment of distraction, Cho In-chan breaks free from his handcuffs. A brutal fight erupts between the two, culminating in a catastrophic car crash that wrecks the armored personnel carrier. Forced to abandon their feud, they reluctantly team up. That night, they find an abandoned supermarket with some leftover food. Both men distrust each other, poised to kill, but they have no choice but to work together, carrying the nuclear warheads toward their target. Inside the store, American soldiers surround them, ready to eliminate the two unwanted witnesses. Just in time, two surviving sappers burst in, commandeering a bus. They crash through the wall, firing at the enemy and giving their commander and Lee Young-pyong a chance to escape. The four survivors flee, desperately fighting off their pursuers. When they reach the bridge, a third volcanic eruption begins, causing the bridge to collapse beneath them. After the project is shut down by the Americans, Robert decides to leave for the US. But on the bus, he runs into Cho In-chan's pregnant wife. At the airport, he tries to avoid her. But when the third volcanic eruption hits, total chaos erupts. Crowds of people and soldiers shove the pregnant woman, and Robert can't stand to watch. When he learns that Choi Ji-yeon is being barred from leaving the country and likely facing a death sentence, Robert decides to make one last attempt to stop the apocalypse. He asks Young Yu-kyung to sneak into their office and steal the crucial data needed to continue their work. The Americans notice the president's secretary in the data theft, but they can't intervene because the president's personal security protects the unarmed woman. With the vital information in hand, Robert analyzes it and concludes the time before the fourth eruption is even shorter, and Cho In-chan must act fast and without hesitation. Meanwhile, Cho In-chan is exhausted from constantly doubting Lee Young-pyong and keeping him under watch. Convinced the mission is doomed, the sapper is ready to hand over the explosives to the triple agent, who plans to sell them to the Chinese mafia. Understanding that Cho In-chan is about to become a father, who might never see his child, Lee Young-pyong leaves him a map with the correct route and goes off to find his daughter. He soon locates her amid the total destruction, but the girl is frightened and doesn't recognize her father. As Lee tries to reconnect with her, the Chinese mafia arrives. When Lee admits he doesn't have the nuclear warheads, he's shot in the stomach. Moments later, American soldiers arrive and a fierce firefight breaks out between them and the mafia. Meanwhile, Robert manages to contact Cho In-chan. He updates him on the limited time left for the operation and gives him the number of the correct mine. After the call, the sapper realizes he doesn't know the exact location of the mine. He only has part of a map sketched from Lee Young-pyong's memory. He heads to the town where the triple agent is hiding and finds him caught in the middle of a gun battle. Pointing to the trunk of his vehicle, Cho In-chan tells everyone there's a nuclear bomb inside and demands a ceasefire. He's ready to hand over the bomb to anyone who wants it, but there's one catch. He has activated a countdown that can't be stopped. As the ground trembles, signaling the start of disaster, both the American soldiers and the Chinese mafia retreat to evacuate as fast as possible. Cho In-chan orders Lee Young-pyong, his daughter, and two wounded comrades to leave and save themselves. He'll head to the volcano alone to find the mine and set off the explosion. But Lee Young-pyong decides to go with him. He's the only one who knows the route. After saying goodbye to his daughter and giving her 2 hairpins as a parting gift, Lee sets off. On the way to the volcano, Cho In-chan calls his wife one last time and says goodbye, knowing this mission is a one-way trip. Braving a storm of rocks, ash, and fire, the two men reach the mine and make their way inside. Using a cart, they transport the nuclear bomb to the elevator, but just as they reach the crucial moment, an underground tremor knocks out the power. The elevator won't work, and climbing down safely is impossible. Cho In-chan is ready to use explosives to sever the cable and stop the elevator in an emergency, but that means they can't come back up. Facing certain death, Lee Young-pyong and Cho In-chan prepare for the worst, but the triple agent makes a different choice. Mortally wounded and bleeding out from his stomach, he reveals he said goodbye to his daughter long ago. Not acting out of patriotism, but as a true human being, Lee Young-pyong decides to sacrifice himself for the future of his daughter. He wants Cho In-chan to become a father to his child and to take care of his daughter. Saying goodbye to his enemy-turned-friend, Lee Young-pyong detonates the cable and descends into the depths. Carrying the explosives to the right spot, he pops some sweet candies, his last small comfort, before the charge detonates, obliterating everything around him. Cho In-chan manages to get back to the vehicle and drive away to a safe distance, narrowly surviving the blast. At the same time, Young Yu-kyung and Robert rush Choi Ji-yeon to the hospital as she goes into premature labor. The building collapses, but even amid the chaos, she manages to give birth to a healthy baby boy. 1 year later, after a brief stay in the US, Robert returns to South Korea to help the government rebuild. Young Yu-kyung meets him at the airport, happy to continue their collaboration. Cho In-chan and Choi Ji-yeon are now a happy family, not only with a wonderful son but also with Lee Young-pyong's daughter, whom they have adopted. Can you really fight an apocalypse with weapons of mass destruction, or is it just postponing the end while causing even greater tragedy? Is sacrificing a few lives to save the many ever truly justified, or is it simply violence masked by logic? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.